Welcome to Business Talk. And while we've slipped back into the clutches of stage 6 load shedding, it might not be readily apparent, but we've seen a real surge in rooftop solar adoption across the country in the last few years. The last 12 months in particular has significantly reduced demand on Eskom's grid and alleviated load shedding to some extent. One can imagine how bad it would be currently if we didn't. Eskom has told My Broadband that its energy sent out has decreased by roughly 2.8% last year, while the figure, including independent power producers, has decreased by 1.8%. So you can see that difference. And a lot of that is coming on residential rooftops. We also see in Cape Town, South Africa's second largest city, it's paying residents for excess power that you generate from your solar installations on the roof. So we can safely call it a rooftop revolution. And I'm glad to be joined now by Marc, Plessis, who's head of LookSee. It's a platform. It's actually called the LookSee platform at Standard Bank. Marc, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Michael. Great to be here.
Now, let's talk about last year. It really was a big year for solar adoption in South Africa. Can you just talk us through how this has played out in the residential sector?
Absolutely. So in January, when Eskom announced essentially permanent load shedding, we saw a dramatic increase in demand, particularly because I think it was that inevitability of a lot of homes going, okay, this isn't going anywhere, so now we have to make a change in our family and find the money to try and make this investment, which none of us really expected to have to make. So we saw in Q1 of 2023 just a dramatic vertical increase in demand. We weren't quite ready for the demand because we didn't expect what it looked like. So there was a lot of supply and demand factors and issues. The demand was outstripping supply. So we saw through the year then a lot of supply coming in, both equipment and installation capacity. So a lot of businesses who maybe were just electricians started to reskill their teams to get into the solar game, start to do residential solar. So really, the market tried to right size itself. And funnily enough, what really happens is demand is directly correlated to load shedding stages. And we've seen this from our data. And it's difficult to predict as a business, difficult to forecast. So through the year, as load shedding really dropped off into the middle of the year, so did the demand. And then again, we saw another pickup in Q3, and then flattening into the end of the year. So very difficult to manage the demand side of things, but it was a huge year for many businesses who are in the residential solar space.
I was one of those who looked at the prices in early 2023 and thought, wait a minute, when that supply-demand imbalance starts to work in my favor, there could potentially be an oversupply. We might actually see prices come down. Is that what we're seeing in the market? Are we actually seeing an oversupply? And how do you expect the cost of home solar products to change this year, given some of the factors that you just mentioned?
Yeah, so as I said, the right sizing of demand, or certainly demand forecast, has been very difficult. A lot of businesses were very bullish with their import volumes, particularly solar panels. And we saw, if you look at the SARS import data, you see a huge hockey stick growth of imports. But as you say, what has has led to now an oversupply of equipment, which has put pressure on pricing. That's the one main factor. So, for example, solar panels were at the beginning of the year 5 Rand per watt, or around 3,500 Rand for a 500 watt panel. That's right down to under 2,000 Rand, 1,800 Rand. So guys who did overdo it and were too bullish on imports had to find ways to offload those stocks, and that's still a case in point. Another key point is really, really big Chinese businesses have started to enter the market and see South Africa as their gateway. As you know, most of the solar equipment is imported from China. So we're seeing a lot more competition from very, very big Chinese companies who are coming into South Africa. And I guess what we're starting to see now is also price subsidizing going on. With these big companies with big balance sheets starting to compete on price, which is great for the consumer, I guess, and great for the pricing. It's dropped by at least 30% year on year if you take February last year to where we are today.
I mean, that's massive. So I'm sure you get this all the time at dinner or around the braai on the weekend, Marc. What does it cost? A typical family of four in a leafy Johannesburg suburb, for example, to install solar that would pretty much cover their needs with all of the inverters and everything else that you need. What are you looking at a headline kind of figure?
Yeah, so for the essentials, we talk about essential load and non-essential load. So, you're not going to run your underfloor heating or your air cons full time, but essential loads keep the family happy, keep the Xbox on, keep the internet running, whatever matters in that particular home environment. Between 90 and 110,000 will get you a good 5 kilowatt system with eight panels, 5 kilowatts of battery, get you through those load shedding stages. So that's where we see the sweet spot. What we do is look at working on finding high quality equipment at lower and lower prices. We know the capital cost is something that families and homes haven't really expected. So there's still, we continue to put pressure on our partners to try and reduce those costs without sacrificing quality.
But that's fully installed. And then you also talking about the saving on your monthly electricity bill. So that also brings the payoff period forward a little bit. And I would imagine that a typical household could recoup that probably in about 2 years worth of their Eskom bill.
Yeah, so you see a big drop. Obviously, what doesn't change in your Eskom bill is your grid connection fee. So all their stores are grid tied. So you're still going to be sitting with that grid connection fee. So your bill won't go to zero. But absolutely, there's a good offset, and that offset improves year on year as Eskom's tariffs increase. So this year, maybe we see another 15%. The mathematics of even if you're paying it off on the solar loan, which we have, or say your home loan, for example, you're getting very, very close to break even month on month with servicing your loan as well as the reduction in your bill. So it is becoming call it a return on investment decision that is not quite there as a no-brainer, but it's getting very close.
Yeah, and we've also got the incentives, as you said. How has government's energy bounce back loan guarantee scheme allowed you to offer better terms on your solar loan products? Because some might not be aware that there is a degree of subsidization going on in the background as well.
Yeah, it's been a really, really great product for us. We launched in September. So what it means is that the Reserve Bank has put a 20% first loss guarantee in place for the banks to offer solar lending for residential and business. So in our world, we're focusing on residential in the personal private banking space. So what we managed to do then is offer pricing of prime plus 1% and capped at prime plus 2.5%. So it's not quite a home loan rate, but it's very, very close. Where you've got personal lending at an average of, say, prime plus 7%, it's a really, really good rate. And that monthly price is really what matters. So over a 5-year term, which is what we can push this loan out to, it gives you an opportunity to reduce those monthly fees and net off, as we said, the bill reductions that you'll see.
Yeah, and still far better than rather taking out on your home loan if you've still got over 5 years to pay off on that. You don't want to be financing 100,000 Rand over 18 years, for example, even though you might get a slightly better interest rate. It just doesn't make sense. Now, if you look at LookSee's offerings, there are a few in the market, but LookSee's seen some really good growth. What sets you apart from the countless other players that we see in the market?
So our focus has really been around curating the equipment and making sure that we work with the Standard Bank brand. Obviously, we're fully owned by Standard Bank as a division of the bank. But the trust and the work that we have to do as a bank regulated within the banking space to partner is significant. So we really have to go through not that other corporates don't go through robust vetting, but we've got another layer of expectation on us, not only from a Standard Bank brand perspective, but also to make sure that whoever we partner with can deliver the goods. So I think that really helps from a trust perspective. And then from a growth perspective, we've really been working hard at reducing the capital outlay. So as I said, not only us, but the macroeconomic factors, but also the work that we've done internally to go and source equipment from distributors and partners that drops that capital cost. So we're very competitive in the price in the pricing space as well. And then of course, access to the Standard Bank customer base and the home loan space, where we work with our partners within Standard Bank, personal private banking, the private bank teams, the home loan teams to offer these services to those customers.
Yeah, and it's all, bottom line, it's great news for the consumer. It's great news for South Africa in that we can accelerate this rollout of rooftop solar. And we saw how transformative it was, I think, in Vietnam, where they installed a crazy figure like 9 gigawatts in 1 year with the right incentives, the right markets in place. When it looks at the typical application and approval process, is it lots of paper? Is it lots of KYC, FICA, all of that? If I want a solar installation and finance from LookSee, how does it work?
So the installation is very simple. Really, just what we need to know is where do you want to install and what your monthly bill is at the moment pre-solar, so we can size you correctly. Then we go through a very simple step-by-step process, a site visit, making sure that if there's any nuances that we can give you the final customized quote. And then once you paid your deposit, the install is booked and it goes ahead. The other area, obviously in the lending space, is a little bit more work to get through. Of course, there's a lot of credit risk and a lot of credit processes that take place. But again, if you're using your home loan and you've got an access facility, you're welcome to use that, or even another bank's access facility. You don't have to use the Standard Bank lending products to use the LookSee services. So we've tried to make it as simple as we possibly can. Always work to be done in that space, as we know. But so far so good. Good promoter scores and good customer feedback with what we're doing.
Yeah, I think as many people have also heard, not all installers are the same. Not all products are the same. You've got to be very careful when you go about a home solar installation. And that's why I think the LookSee offer really is quite differentiated. I think you've got that peace of mind, that quality and the scale as well through Standard Bank. Now, just lastly, I think the $1 million question is when we're going to see the end of load shedding. It seems like it's been promised 2 years from now for the last 20 years. What is your view on where we're going and whether or not load shedding is nearly finished?
So I don't have my crystal ball with me, unfortunately, but if I had it out, I would bring it up. But, on a serious note, all of us want this to end. What our job is at LookSee is we believe that every solar panel that goes on a roof, if it's in an affluent suburb or wherever it may be, is another piece less burden on the grid. So all boats rise in a rising tide. And what we believe is that we're going to support the country and people who will maybe never be able to afford solar to get out of this load shedding and support the burden on the grid issue. We know that there's a base load gap, right? It hasn't magically gone away. So there is still a base load problem within Eskom and the power that they're challenged by. So we do believe over time, of course, more and more residential solar. We're obviously very encouraged by some of the incentives and would urge, the government and the parties to consider more incentives, because as you said, in Vietnam, Australia, other countries, those incentives have really worked. So residential solar is one of the answers. It's not the only answer. But I haven't answered your question directly, but I think we've still got a good few years of load shedding to come, unfortunately.
It's a forecaster's graveyard trying to predict the end of load shedding, but I share your sentiments, Mark. I think any panel on any roof is, a megawatt saved for Eskom, and you're part of the solution at the end of the day. And it's the right thing to do in terms of clean, sustainable energy. And there's so many things, add value to your home. And I can go on and on. Anyway, very welcome insights. Thanks very much, Marc Plessis, head of the LookSee platform at Standard Bank. Don't forget to like and share this episode of Business Talk here on businesstech.co.za.